All right, I have an admittedly insane idea, but if I don't ask you this, it's just, you know, it's gonna haunt me the rest of my life.
What?
I want to keep talking to you. You know, I have no idea what your situation is, but I feel like we have some kind of connection, right?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, right. Well, great. So listen, here's the deal. This is what we should do. You should get off the train with me here in Vienna and come check out the town.
What?
Come on, it'll be fun. Come on.
After 2 years of college, I was working offshore in the oil industry. I was had a hard hat and steel-toe boots and working in the Gulf of Mexico. And when I was on land, I found myself at theaters. I think I had always been a writer, but I had gotten interested in film a little bit. But those 2 years, I just found myself watching many films every day. If I didn't have to work that day, I'd watch 3 or 4 films, and I just got obsessed with movies. So I bought a bunch of equipment, and I thought about moving to Los Angeles or New York or something, but I couldn't really afford it. But the college town in Texas is called Austin, and I thought I might go to film school, but I never did. But they showed a lot of movies on campus there, and I had friends who went there. So I just moved to Austin and planted my flag and thought I would start making movies. By the mid-1980s, I had lived in Austin a couple years, and I realized they were showing the same films over and over at the film programs, usually with the college they were showing. And so I was kind of getting frustrated with that. I wanted to see more films. And so I did some research and found out you could rent the films. This is in 16 millimeter back then. So I said, oh, I can rent a film for $100 if I could get, you know, 50 people to pay $2. We could show anything we wanted. So that's kind of where the Film Society was born. It was myself and roommates at the time and people. I talked to the local theater owner into letting us start showing films at midnight. And we were successful from the jump. In early October '85, we showed experimental films, and I just got greedy. I just wanted to see so many films. So a lot of it was my own private film education. When people ever compliment me, oh, you did so much I said, I was doing it for myself. But the more successful we were, I did start to think like, oh, we'd be great to have our own theater. It'd be great to help filmmakers. It'd be great to, you know, do film services. All these years later, we've become that organization. 34 years later, we have a lot of employees. We're in schools teaching kids media. We have 3 TV channels that we manage. We have a 2-screen theater. We've given out almost $2 million in grants.
And I'm just continually impressed by the integrity and the creativity that bristles around this city and the seriousness of the intent of the people here. It's very clear, and living in New York City, you have a very different experience. There's all this creative energy, but it's not as directed. Anyway, I could speak about that longer, but I'm very moved every time I come here, and I find it very inspiring. And the Austin Film Society is a great organization, and any way that we can all work towards creating, yes, it is. And the more that we can work towards creating a rich and fertile soil for the arts to grow, and we will be paid back for it in spades by the evolution of our thought and our spirit in this community and in our country.
I'm lucky by birth. I came along at a time where, for the first time, you didn't have to move to LA to make movies, where everyone, for years in the US, you had to move, get an agent, make an exploitation film for Roger Corman, try to get in a position to make your films. You know, the generation before me, they paved the way. They all did that. But by the time I came along in the later 80s, the more independent world had became more solidified. You could kind of stay where you were a lot easier, and I was able to.
I just had the weirdest dream back on the bus there. Do you ever have those dreams that are just completely real? I mean, they're so vivid. It's just like completely real. It's like there's always something bizarre going on in those. I have one about every 2 years or something. I always remember them really good. It's like there's always someone getting run over or something really weird. One time I had lunch with Tolstoy. Another time I was a roadie for Frank Zappa. Anyway, so this dream I just had, it was just like that, except instead of anything bizarre going on, I mean, there was nothing going on at all. Man.
The greatest leap I ever made as a filmmaker was in between what's seen as my first film, Slacker, which was done completely independently, financed with, credit cards and small loans and, the usual no-budget film. And then my next film, because of the success of Slacker, I was able to get this film I had been thinking about made, which was Dazed and Confused, We're talking a $23,000 budget to a $6 million budget. 5 years before I made Slacker, I was just driving late at night, and I thought of really the structure of it. Like, oh, I've never seen a film that just goes one character to the next, when you're young and so enthusiastic for cinema. And for me, I was just thinking, like, what cinema can and can't do, Or what are the boundaries of storytelling? And I've really spent my adult life thinking about this narrative storytelling particular to cinema. So I had a lot of theories and a lot of ideas along these lines. But the idea of Slacker came to me kind of all at once. I was like, oh, so that could be a whole film. I think that would work. It doesn't make sense on paper, but I think that would work. So, and I never thought anyone would see it. I thought maybe show it at a festival. I never thought it would get a national or even international audience. I just thought it'd be too weird or too... And I didn't think the culture would want to see something from where I live, Texas, that wasn't about cowboys and, Western. It was a very postmodern kind of story, idea. But, so I was pleasantly surprised when it caught on the way it did. While I was filming Slacker, I also had this idea, like, to make what I felt was my teenage movie that would just be what teenage life was like, and just in an experiential, real way, which to me, I'm very simple. I kind of boil films down to one thing, and the one thing about that was just riding around looking for something to do. That's what I remembered about. At that point, I was in my late 20s. I had enough distance on my teen years, all that pain or whatever anxiety of teenage. I was starting to process it in some unique way. So I got very personal. I made a film about my own teenage years, and we based it in, one night. But it was really just about trying to be cool and looking for something to do. The teen movies I saw, they were always so overwrought with drama. It was always car crash, kill someone, or she's pregnant and they live on different, I just thought, not only has that been done, it's not really true to most people's, sure things happen, but I was kind of anti-drama. I wanted just real-time experience. Even though the film has its own teenage drama in it, I was just kind of experimenting in my own way with that. It's funny how one thing leads to the next. I had finished, Dazed and Confused was coming out in the fall of '93. After Dazed, this big ensemble movie, I wanted to bring my same working methodology, but to just two people. I wanted to see the classic boy meets girl story. Something like that had happened to me years before, and I'd always thought about it like, oh, there's a movie there. And again, it wasn't a big drama. It was what it feels like to be infatuated with someone, to be kind of falling for somebody, or just to be traveling and, meet someone kind of randomly, but then have kind of a deeper connection. So I was like, well, that's what that film's about. So I'd written that the spring and summer before, and once Dazed came out, I was like, well, that's what I want to do next. I had this next film. And it just so happens that one of my Dazed and Confused actors, Anthony Rapp, was in a play in New York, and Ethan Hawke was in it along with Anthony and a bunch of other great actors. He was one of the biggest stars of his generation. But I still didn't, having not met him, I didn't really think he was right until I met him. And we just said hi kind of backstage, and then he came in the next day and we started talking just about the part. He'd read the script, he had a lot of questions, and we just started talking, and I realized, oh, that was 25 years ago, we're still talking. We still have this dialogue, it's kind of wonderful. He came in early, and then I still looked for cast for a long time, but then when I met Julie, I got them together, and I realized, okay, those are the two smart, creative, they had a nice chemistry. I mean, in casting, I'm always looking, just give me the smartest people with the best sense of humor, and that's a good start.
I can't believe you're here.
Well, I live here in Paris.
Wow.
Are you sure you don't have to stay? You're not supposed to talk some more?
No. They're sick of me. I spent the night here last night.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. They got a loft upstairs.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, how are you? This is so weird.
I'm fine. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
So you want to go to a cafe?
Yeah.
Okay. This one a little further.
Okay.
I mean, the Before trilogy is definitely the accidental, unplanned trilogy. There was no, I think probably most trilogies are, you know, you just start and something kind of special happens. And for us, I think most sequels are probably spawned by economic success. You know, like, oh, that's a hit, let's give them more of that. We always joke that ours was the least successful films to ever spawn a sequel. I think when we did Before Sunset here in Paris in '03, there was probably like 4 people in the world who cared if that film got made. The 3 of us and Martin Schaefer at Castle Rock, who thought we should do it. When we did the 3rd one, having done 2, we sort of declared ourselves. So by the time we did a 3rd one, people were starting to ask, is there gonna be a 3rd one? I was like, I don't even want to think about, like, it happened the same way both times. It was about 5 years of not thinking of it all. And then realizing that Jesse and Celine were getting older. They had something to say. And then, you know, Julie and Ethan and I would get together and we would end up talking. And then at some point we'd realize, oh yeah, maybe those characters are still alive and there's something to express.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If we were meeting for the first time today on a train, would you find me attractive?
Of course.
No, but really, right now, as I am, would you start talking to me? Would you ask me to get off the train with you?
Somewhere along the way, I think it was being a parent. Once, you know, I had a daughter and, you know, the way their lives proceed, you start living your own life through them. You can't help but recall what you were like at their age or what that process of growing up is. I mean, both from a kid's perspective and a parent's perspective. So I felt I had a story there. I was really reaching. I wanted to say something about childhood and that development process. I was struggling for a couple years to find the form of it. You know, no one really talks about it, but when you go to depict a child, a young person, you have to kind of limit your time frame because, you know, you can't, okay, you're 7 years old in this scene, now you have to be 12. You can't do that. You have to get a different actor. Or, you know, it's a messy story. So the best kids movies, like 400 Blows, you know, it's a few days in his life. You know, you get these little stories. But I didn't have like a little story. I was trying to tell a bigger story. So I'd almost given up. I actually had. I said, okay, I'm gonna have to return. To express what I want to express, I'm gonna have to write that novel I never wrote. The teenager in me who wanted to be a novelist, I'm gonna do that, because I can't crack at cinema. It's not working as a film. So I'm not exaggerating. I sat down to actually start writing. As my fingers hit the keys of my typewriter, this idea came to me, that it was like, oh, well, what if you filmed a little bit every year and let the time just add on? It would take, you know, I wanted to say something about, in the US, the school goes 1st to 12th grade. So I said, I'm gonna cover 12 years, and it's gonna start off with him in 1st grade, and it's gonna end with him going off to college. These are big rites of passage. So that would be the story. And so I said, well, it'll take 12 years to do, but each, you know, I thought, oh, each one will be about 10 minutes long, and that'll be a feature length. It ended up being more. But that was the idea. It came to me all at once, very fully formed. That was the concept, but it's a strong concept. So when I took it to actors, I was like, Ethan, Patricia, like, what are you doing the next 12 years? And they would get the funniest looks on their face. I sat down with Ethan, and he got this weird look on his face, but he's like, yeah.
Now, listen to this song, right? I try to stay busy. It's just straight up, the lyrics in a straight up old school country song. I do the dishes, I'm all alone. Listen to the production. Production's like a
yeah, it was a wonderful life project. To me, cinema is just a part of life, you know. It's not I'm not thinking final product, I'm just thinking, you know, what story do you want to tell? What does it mean to you and how to do it? And I don't care to think about much else. I've had some retrospectives, even as, I think when I was making my 6th film, I had like a retrospective in New York. So it's funny to drop in on your own career every now and then, because I don't think in career terms. I think, you know, the next film and the next film and the next film, but you have to acknowledge at some point when you've made, you know, 20, 21 films, whatever it is, that's, oh yeah, there's kind of a body of work there. I'm honored and excited about the Pompidou showings is because they're trying to be very thorough, showing even the smaller things that I've done, kind of side project works like Up to Speed or other things I've shot that aren't necessarily feature-length films. And I don't have a lot of that, and some experimental work I did at other times. So I'm kind of excited that it's all there for anyone who might want to drop in and see it. There's actually an exhibition element too. And hopefully, if we achieve what we're setting out to achieve, it could be very cool.